How's it going? Storm Glaurung here. I've lately been getting asked a ton of questions about how strong Zeratul is, what build you should go, and just in general, a lot of people are requesting my thoughts on the hero, and I'd love to share that for you, so that's what this video is going to be about. I'm just going to talk a little bit about the hero's kit since the rework, the build I like to go, and then why I like to go that build compared to other people. Alright, getting right into it, I want to just open up right out of the gates talking about ultimates. There's been, since the rework, a lot of Zeratul's damage, the positioning in his kit where his damage lies has changed significantly, and a lot of his damage comes into his ultimate choice now. Now that being said, that's a pretty big nerf to Void Prison. When you take Void Prison, you're sacrificing a lot of what makes Zeratul a strong hero outside of pure ultimate usage. Now, this is a good thing and a bad thing. It's a good thing because it made another Zeratul for ultimate for Zeratul pickable, but it's a bad thing because now Void Prison, to take it, you sacrifice so much. It kind of feels like with new Zeratul that you're fighting like a 4 versus 5 the whole game when you choose Void Prison, but even though it is 4v5, because you have Void Prison, sometimes you just get that free win factor where you get that 3-man VP, and suddenly it's a 4 versus 2. You know what I mean? So Void Prison's an ability that always will be strong and always will have its use, but in general, I don't think it's the ult to go anymore because of how much damage you sacrifice on the map and in teamfights in pretty much any situation. So Might of the Nerazim is a really good ultimate. It gives him a lot of options, both mobility-wise and damage-wise, and then the 40% crit baseline is huge. And the rest of his kit, everyone's probably familiar with at this point. Now, going over talent builds, there's primarily 2 builds, I think, that are meta right now. There's Seeker in the Dark, which I heavily prefer, and more of a cleave-oriented poke-style builds, which some players we're seeing experiment with. Overseas, Rich, for example, I think prefers Q build. And both builds have merit. Both builds have a different purpose when you draft a Zeratul in a team comp. And I'm here to shed some light on that. So I'm going to go into try mode. I'm not an expert on cleave builds, so I won't go as in-depth into cleave build, but I'll go pretty in-depth into Seeker in the Dark and just share with you guys my thought process behind selecting this build. And I'm going to start off by going Shadowhunter. I think this talent, one of the biggest buffs Zeratul got post-rework. It opens up his mobility so much. Like, similar to Illidan's passive functionality, you're able to sort of play Zeratul in an overly aggressive way, taking into consideration the cooldown reduction from your auto attacks and get away safely. Similar to how you use Illidan's evasion, kind of incorporate that thought process into your blinks as well, and you'll see an improvement for sure. It's actually, oh my god, reset times. Let's set the level 20. Level 4, I don't consider Rending Cleave a talent for Seeker in the Dark build, but there is, I'd say it's like a 95-5 split between Psionic Strength and Darkness Descents. In situations where the enemy team is like a point-and-click support, a really tanky front line, and you're just not going to be able to threaten any lethality on a carry, that's when you go Darkness Descends and just split push. You just AFK split push, hope to win that way, and win 1v1 skirmishes and things like that. You're not opting into team fights. Now, like I said, that's 1 in 20 games Darkness Descends is a pickable talent. It doesn't even mean it's necessarily better, but it is an option. In general, I like to go Psionic Strength. Some synergy with Psionic Strength, just in general, I want to point out while we're talking about the talent. A lot of people, I imagine, struggle with watching this indicator, right? The indicator underneath the health bar is where you see your current bonus damage on Psionic Strength. However, there's an easier way to track when you're doing bonus damage, and that is simply whether or not your Vorpal Blade is lit up. Zeratul kind of has a magic number of 3 seconds, and it applies on pretty much anything. Wormhole, 3 seconds. Vorpal Blade, 3 seconds. Level 7 movement speed off Seeker in the Dark, 3 seconds. Psionic Strength's duration, 3 seconds. So as long as you kind of keep that in your thought process and you're always thinking about okay, when I have 30% bonus damage, obviously Vorpaling back in, getting that auto Q is going to be better than waiting till it drops. It's just easier to keep track of. And level 7, I spoke briefly about it, I think, but I mentioned the word lethality. This talent is what, in my opinion, gives Zeratul lethality. I think that being able to initiate from a range like that on any target is pretty absurd, especially taking into consideration the burst you can do at level 20. Now, one thing I just want to say, I tend to think about the game in a competitive mentality. This build might not be the best for quick match, Hero League, Team League, but it's the build I prefer, and it's the build, at least as of right now, you'll most likely see me be playing in HGC. And just something as simple as that, like, you're able to, just by keeping track of your Vorpal timing, keep track of your level 4 timing. Level 10 is a big power spike for Zeratul. You get 40% bonus damage on all your autos. Really generates to the amount of damage you can do in one combo. It's level 20 without the rest of my talents. Don't actually look at the damage done. That's not a good indicator of anything, guys. Mending Strikes, very, very good talent. It allows you to split push well, sustain well, win 1v1 skirmishes, and it also synergizes with the bonus damage you get off of Might of the Nerazim. You heal for a lot more than you'd expect. Spell Shield is also pickable. I mentioned this is kind of like a 95-5 split. This one isn't as easy to articulate. Spell Shield you take when it's good. Like if you're against a Temporal Loop Komi and she's only targeting you and you know you need that Spell Shield, go ahead and take it. It's a very rare scenario, probably even less than 5% of the time I go Spell Shield, but it is still an option. Level 16 I like Sentenced, just same exact reason. It just makes Seeker in the Dark stronger. You still have the lethal range from your level 7 talent as represented there, but now that you've hit 16, it's not just the range that's lethal, it's your damage output from the combo that becomes lethal also. Like, 2700 damage there. Not 100% realistic circumstances, it'll be different damage, but once you hit 16, it's a huge power spike. And level 20 is where I think Zeratul is, like, the best hero in the game. He gets Rewind at level 20 on a 20-second cooldown. Just the amount of things you're able to do with this. We could literally, I could sit here in try mode for 2 hours and probably just do different, like, combos. There's so many different things you can do with it. Moral of the story is, your single target damage output with Rewind is insane. Once you hit level 20 with Seeker in the Dark, I stop doing everything, but I look for picks with EW. Because for me, I'm comfortable enough landing the combo. If I EW, like, it just feels natural to me at this point that Zeratul with this build becomes so lethal at level 20, any other build is, like, unjustifiable, honestly. That being said, hopefully this sheds some light onto my thought process of Seeker in the Dark build. I'm going to talk briefly about Cleave build. I haven't done very much experimentation with Cleave build, but just in general, I think the build orients itself around poke. If you want a lot of poke in your draft, there's other ways, other heroes you can more reliably, safely get that. So I don't like when people use the argument, Zeratul is a poke hero with Cleave build, all you have to do is sit in the back line, you do so much damage. You just should pick another hero in that case, I think. Now I could be wrong, the damage numbers of Cleave build might be enough to justify playing him that way, but as of right now I don't see it when I look in comparison to the level 20 single target damage of Seeker in the Dark. Now that being said, you really want to utilize your level 16 talent when you do get it. Void Slash is the biggest power spike of the build, I think. Well, Wormhole you could argue is, but Void Slash, if you don't get value out of this talent, I feel like it's just really, really hard to justify the build. If you're consistently getting value out of Void Slash, you're doing a lot of damage, and Q build's pretty good. But all in all, to summarize, I feel like Seeker in the Dark gives you more lethality and better split push, better skirmishing. I think Cleave build gives you better poke and easier team fighting. I think the burden of execution on Seeker in the Dark is a lot higher than on Cleave build, simply because with Cleave build you wormhole in, you poke, you wormhole out, and then potentially Vorpal in, and Vorpal is your lethal tool. Whereas with Seeker, W is your lethal tool, and like I'll miss Arthas here. If I do this in a tournament game, I'm a useless hero with no mobility for 10 seconds. That's kind of the trade-off we're dealing with here. So for your guys' experiences in Hero League Quick Match, if you're first getting into Zeratul, I recommend you try Q build, just because it's more friendly, less punishing when you make misplays, and all in all, really fun. But from a competitive standpoint, the way I see it right now, I feel like Seeker is the competitive build. Hopefully, me rambling, messing around in try mode was enlightening, entertaining to you guys. Please feel free to give any feedback, constructive, non-constructive. I don't really care. I'm pretty new to making videos, so I'd really appreciate any and all feedback you guys can give me. And thank you guys. I'll see you next time.